I'm Rob.
And I'm Nate.
And welcome back to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. This is week 2 of our Westerns theme month. And this is a fun week because this week you can't do Westerns and not touch on John Wayne. Mm. So tonight is our John Wayne night. And for our John Wayne film, we did the 1953 movie Hondo. Which this was your first time seeing this, right?
Yeah, you were wanting to try to pick a bigger name Wayne film that I hadn't seen, and this was one that came up.
I wanted to pick a big name John Wayne movie, but I wanted to make sure it was good, and I wanted to make sure, having it be one that you hadn't seen wasn't as high of a priority. For reference, some of the other ones we debated was something like True Grit that seemed a little too easy, too obvious. Another one was Who Shot Liberty Valance, which Bravo. We both love.
Yeah.
But again, because we both have already seen it, we both know we love it, it felt like it was going to be maybe too easy. So I have seen Hondo, but I probably have not seen Hondo since 96 or 97, maybe 98.
I was going to ask you how much you remembered of it. Like, was this kind of like a rediscovery? Like, had you forgotten large plot points? And
I had forgotten the ending, and I had forgotten that he ends up shooting the husband, spoiler. But that was the only two things that I'd really forgotten. Obviously, there were scenes I remembered as I broke out laughing.
Yeah, before the funny parts? Yeah.
Long before the funny part. Like, they are barely putting the scene on screen, and I was laughing because I knew what was coming. And this movie does contain one particularly funny scene. But yeah. Getting into the plot overview, Hondo Lane, played by John Wayne, is an army dispatch rider who discovers a woman and young son living in the midst of warring Apaches and becomes their protector. Now, this family has lived amongst the Apaches for a long time and kind of has a uneasy truce with the Apaches. They've been left alone for a long time, but the husband and father has been gone for months. And when John Wayne, Hondo Lane, comes across them. And eventually, Hondo actually runs into the father back at a camp a long ways away from this settlement. And essentially, the dad and husband is
a jerk.
He's a jerk and a coward and is afraid to go home. And so when John Wayne learns this, he takes it upon himself to go back and protect them. And little does he know he gains protection from them instead.
Indeed.
Yeah. The Apaches nearly kill him, but because he's taken the picture from the now deceased father, the father actually tracks John Wayne and attempts to ambush him, and John Wayne merely defends himself, actually saves the father's life from the Indians. Yeah. Like, at the same time that the father is tracking John Wayne, the Indians are there as well, and as he goes to attack John Wayne, the Indians attack him and his compatriot. John Wayne saves him, and then he tries to shoot John Wayne in the back, and John Wayne is forced to kill him. But then he goes back, and of course, Angie Lowe, played by Geraldine Page, falls in love with him, and decides she's gonna, they decide they're gonna be together forever and go back to his ranch in California. So
outside San Dimas.
Yeah,
it's an excellent location for a ranch.
Yeah,
I keep making that joke. You don't get it.
No, is it near Hidden Valley?
No, it's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is in San Dimas, California.
On John Wayne's ranch? No, just kidding.
Yeah. And the Geraldine Page John Wayne romance, it builds. They kind of get a flirting thing at his first visit, and it's actually pretty well constructed. What the dynamic between those two. When the film started, at first I wasn't digging it. This is a film where my opinion of it grew tremendously over the course of it. I think it gets really better as it goes along, and I think it has a strong ending. But the beginning just seems to take forever, and it's slow talk, and it's not that interesting. And Geraldine Page is playing a character that is trying to kind of mislead Wayne and kind of downplay the fact that the husband's been missing for months and he could be back any time.
It seems like a trope.
And so she is acting like she's a bad actress because this lady is bad at faking things. And so at first I was thinking, she's not very good.
Well, at this point, she was primarily a stage actress.
Yeah. But she is actually very good. Geraldine Page is an 8-time Oscar nominee.
Really?
4 times for lead and 4 times for supporting. She eventually won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for Trip to Bountiful in 1985, shortly before she died.
Huh. Interesting. She was, jumping ahead slightly, she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in this movie.
And this was this her film debut?
I don't recall if it was her
It's one
film
of her
debut, but it was pretty early for her. Any guesses on who alternate casting for this Angie Lowe part?
I'll be curious to learn.
Audrey Hepburn.
No.
That was who was originally cast for this, but as they were working on the script and as that character, the Angie Lowe character, continued to become more and more subservient, they eventually called Audrey Hepburn's agent and said, we're pretty sure this isn't the right fit for her.
Yes, and it would have been an inappropriate case.
Yeah.
As great as Audrey Hepburn is,
that's who was originally supposed to be that part.
Well, that's interesting.
So, yeah. So the cast, it was, we've mentioned the 2 primary characters thus far. John Wayne as Hondo Lane, Geraldine Page as Angie Lowe. You also have Ward Bond playing Buffalo Baker.
Because of course you have Ward Bond. It's a John Wayne film.
Michael Pate plays Vittorio.
So he plays the Indian chief, the good Indian chief.
Yeah.
And there's that joke about how all the Indians were played by Italians, which in this case would make them Hondo Italianos.
Wow.
But he's not actually, Michael Pate isn't Italian, he's Australian. But
really?
He's playing an Indian.
Wow. Yeah. Leo Gordon plays Ed Lowe.
James Arness is in this?
Yeah, James Arness plays Lenny. He's the guy that wants Hondo's rifle.
Mm.
Tom Irish is Lieutenant McKay. And Johnny Lowe is played by the young Lee Aker.
Mm.
I was curious what else he did. The Challenge of Rin Tin Tin. A Jeopardy movie. It's a good cast. It's fun. What did you think of this movie? This was your first time seeing it?
As I said, it really grew on me. Early on, I'm like, this is just kind of here. But it's actually a really great story. And this dynamic of John Wayne and Geraldine Page and then the first husband,
Ed Lowe.
It's a great story. And it really works. Again, it takes a while to get going. But I thought by the end, I was really involved, and I thought some of the discussions between the characters, like where they're going back and forth about whether or not to tell the boy, and I thought there was some really strong acting there. Unusually strong for Wayne, actually.
Yeah. Well, and you were surprised that this is a 1953 release, as I mentioned. You thought this was earlier in his collection.
I thought this was later in his career. I thought this was a 60s film.
Yeah.
And so I came in knowing basically the title and then when it came out. And I knew almost nothing about it, which, is, as we discussed earlier off mic, a lot of these Western films, the title give you no idea about what this movie is about.
Yeah.
And Hondo? What? Is that, what?
Yeah. This movie was based in part on a book from Louis L'Amour.
Oh, yes.
Which gets into one of the trivia items I was going to touch on. This was nominated for 2 Oscars, as I mentioned previously, Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Geraldine Page. The second Oscar it was nominated for was Best Writing Motion Picture Story, but it was disqualified.
Indeed. Because
it was not... This is what we would now call like original score or original story.
Adapted.
Well, no, but that's the problem is it was based in at least loosely on the Louis L'Amour gift or book, but it wasn't credited as having been such. It was disqualified from the category.
So when we were watching the opening title sequence, that had been restored. So this subsequently they added the credit into the opening sequence.
Yeah.
Which we should talk a little bit about the font and the opening sequence and some of the shots. Because this movie was originally released in 3D, a 3D Western back in '53, which was the boom time.
There was a couple shots that, as you mentioned, were very obviously shot.
Yeah, it's like when the gun's pointing at the screen, and I would
the knife lunges.
Yeah, I would kind of like to see this film in 3D. I mean, some of the shots, especially the big shots of horses and Indians against the landscape, and they've got those kind of butte things that are fairly prominent. I think this movie probably looked really well in 3D, and I did think it was interesting that the movie had an intermission when it's only 85 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I figure that's got to be because they're thinking audiences aren't gonna need to rest their eyes from the 3D because it's would have been such an unusual thing.
Wasn't intermission still common in the 50s?
Yeah, but not for something that short.
Okay. I thought it was in most movies at that time, regardless of length.
It's not even an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely shorter. There's some other trivia here worth noting. John Wayne attributed this film's moderate performance at the box office to its familiarity with to Shane, which was also released in 1953.
I kept thinking of Shane.
Yeah. We'll get into the box office numbers later. Yeah, Michael Pate, who plays the Indian chief, as we already mentioned, was also in real life an expert in Old West military procedure. He told later that an Indian attack in the movie was not realistic at all because Indians were expert in guerrilla warfare and it would never have been trapped in an arroyo by the U.S. Army. Yeah, John Wayne was not even originally supposed to star in this. It was supposed to be Glenn Ford in the title role. But John Ford didn't like the director, John Farrow, in their previous collaboration, Plunder of the Sun, and so he turned down the offer, and that's when Wayne took it himself. But evidently, Wayne and Farrow had a tumultuous relationship through this filming, and they filmed one other movie together. I forget the title off the top of my head, but they didn't even get along on that one either. And after Farrow passed away, John Wayne basically took credit for directing the majority of this film. So, John Wayne, he's a large personality, but after viewing a finished film at a private screening of this movie, John Wayne jokingly said, "I'll be damned if I'm not the stuff men are made of." And the dog, what did you make of the dog in this movie?
The dog was an interesting choice.
Do you know why he ended up being less of a character in the story, and probably why he was actually killed off when he was?
No.
It was so hot on the filming that the scenes where he was supposed to be growling, he just was panting. And so they had to keep him in an air-conditioned crate on set and just let him out to film scenes. And I think I'm assuming that it just became so difficult to manage the dog that's why they end up having the dog get killed off as part of the movie. Yeah,
when they cut to that scene where the one Indian, the jerk Indian, brings the dead dog back on a pike to the ranch, was an audible, "Aw."
Yeah.
Killing a dog in a movie, man. That's the way to get your "aw."
Yeah. And according to a John Wayne autobiography, with Wayne knowing that the movie had a kissing scene and hearing Paige's teeth were in extreme neglect, he authorized a discreet dental treatment for her prior to filming.
Wow.
I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that's evidently in John Wayne's autobiography. Out-of-date pop culture references.
Okay.
This movie is referenced twice in the TV show Married with Children.
Indeed.
This evidently was Al Bundy's favorite movie.
Oh.
And twice over the course of the TV show series, a major plot element of an episode is that he's trying to watch this movie when it's on TV and is foiled in every attempt to watch it. Once in the second season and then again in the 8th season. He tries to watch it and mentions that it's his favorite movie and is unable to watch it. Outdated pop culture. Yeah, there's that Katharine Hepburn one. I won't read it for the podcast, but you can look at it if you want.
Okay, so this was originally to have been a teaming of Katharine Hepburn and John Wayne, but when it was sold to her, the idea was that they would have closer to equal screen time, be close to equal characters, and as things changed in, I guess, the preliminary writing, the decision was made that it wasn't the right part for Hepburn, but they did eventually make a film together in 1975, Rooster Cogburn.
Yep. Evidently, this was one of John Wayne's personal favorite movies that he made because it reflected the values that he stood for: honesty, loyalty, bravery, self-reliance, and independence.
And killing Indians.
Evidently, yeah.
I was going to say, this is a real cowboys and Indians movie. It's not just a Western.
Yeah.
And you don't really, for some obvious reason, you don't really see this kind of film anymore. But it should be pointed out that the original chief in this film is depicted as an honorable man and a good leader. And there's that scene early on where the Indians have gone to the ranch and the kid threatens them with a gun and shoots the number two, who eventually takes over after the good leader is killed. And it looks like there's going to be a big confrontation, and the chief goes up to him and says, "Are you scared of us?" Like, "I'm not scared." "Then you are brave. You will be blood brother." And does the little blood brother thing, and tells Geraldine Page, he's Apache now. You watch out for him.
You're the mother of a warrior.
You're the mother of a warrior. And it's great because that was his means of diffusing this situation and not killing these two people.
Yeah.
And it's impressive.
Yeah. Answering a previous question you had, although this is often described as the film debut of Geraldine Page, she had already played Florence in Taxi, also from 1953, released earlier in the year. So not the film debut of Geraldine Page. Yeah, Geraldine Page, who was originally a Broadway actress, apparently didn't agree with the political views of John Wayne, Ward Bond, James Arness, and John Farrow. Not that would be a big surprise.
No. Yeah, they would have had the same issue with Hepburn.
Yeah.
Either Hepburn.
Yeah. Well, that was all that I wanted to share out of the trivia. Let me look for the box office numbers. This had an estimated $3 million budget back in 1953, and I don't see any figures for the box office, being brought in, so I guess we'll skip over that. How would you rate this film?
I would give it 3 stars.
Yeah?
I'd give it probably 7 on the 10-star scale.
I think I would go 3 and 8, so we're pretty close, but I think I like this a little bit more. There's just there's one iconic scene in particular where the kid tells John Wayne he can't swim, and he says, "How old are you?" And he's 6. And he just picks him up, throws the fishing rod on the ground, and just picks him up and throws him in the, whatever that is, the pond, the river, or whatever. And, the mom comes over and goes, "Help him, he can't swim." And he goes, "Well, he's going to figure it out." And she goes, "What if he doesn't?" And he says, "You'll go get him." And she goes, "Well, I can't swim either." And he looks at her like he's going to throw her, and she just takes off and running.
Yeah, that is funny.
But yeah, that's a classic scene. That's referenced. That's even today a pop culture reference sometimes. But yeah, that was a fun scene. That was the one I busted out laughing as soon as it started.
Yeah.
As soon as the kid was standing near the water with his fishing pole, I knew what was coming. So, yeah. What else would you like to add on this movie?
I think that's about all I had to say about it. Again, it's a little slow going at first. I think it just improves tremendously over the course of the film. At the very beginning, I was looking up Geraldine Page. I'm like, how on earth did this woman get 8 Oscar nominations? And then by the end, I'm like, okay, she deserves her Oscar nomination.
Yeah. This has a aggregate score on IMDb of 7.1 stars. So you liked it pretty much right in line with the average IMDb rating.
Has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, well-regarded movie. It was treated well by the critics at the time. There's no Metacritic score on this one, but yeah. And if you want to watch this, it is currently available for free on Amazon Prime. So, yeah. Anything else, Dad? If not, I'm Rob.
I'm Nate.
And this is Rob and Nate Record a Podcast.
You may want to edit the Audrey Hepburn point out, because I think you misread the Katharine Hepburn reference the first time.
Oh,
Unless both Hepburns were...
Did I say Katharine the first time?
You said Audrey the first time.
Oh, yeah. Oops. Well, I'll correct that later. Good thing that's at the end. Why didn't you fix that at the beginning for me, so that I knew to watch for that as I edit?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to get to this and then have to go back. And
yeah.
It's probably better than an 8-minute rant about pools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a little moment in this movie where John Wayne gives a very efficient eulogy, and I would not be opposed to someone giving it at my funeral. Everybody gets dead. It was his turn.
I'll keep that in mind. Now I've got it recorded too. Now nobody can dispute it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But you know what? Outdated pop culture references are the bee's knees.
Wow.